Day at 5 p.m. Eastern. So you know what that means. It's time for another episode of #Event Icons, presented by Endless Events, the show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. So you might be wondering, how do you get to ask questions? All you have to do is use the question panel on the right of GoToWebinar to submit your questions. Or you can hop on Twitter to submit your questions with the #EventIcons. We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share #EventIcons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is #EventIcons with your hosts, Will Curran of Endless Events, Laura Lopez of Social Tables, and Brant Kruger of Event Technology Consulting.
All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to another edition of Event Icons. I'm Brant Kruger. Joining me is Will, and today we are going to be talking about catering and events. So, Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about who we have got to join us as the icons of the event industry today?
Well, I've known these guys for quite a while. They are truly iconic. I've always looked to them as I entered the events industry, so it was a matter of time before I got them on this show. These guys have literally catered the biggest events you can think of, and their stories will tell the crazy things that they have done in the past, but they are truly iconic. One of the best caterers and probably one of the biggest caterers in the Southwest, if not the nation. I'm joined by M Culinary Concepts team, Mr. Michael Stavros, Brandon Maxwell, and Chef Michael Del Maria. We're so excited to have all three of you guys here today. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
We're here with you, Will.
We're here, baby.
Awesome. And these guys literally, I'm going to, every time I talk to them about, where they're going and the stuff they've done, literally these guys do all the biggest catering stuff here. So I had to have them on the show. So I don't want to delay too much because their knowledge is really what's going to show here today. So why don't we just start kicking it off with the first question. I'll let them tell the story. And I'm going to have Chef Michael kick it off with the story today. And tell us a little bit about, what got you in the events industry and what got you into catering and becoming, the culinary chief culinary officer over at M Culinary.
Ooh, that's a big question. I've been cooking for 42 years now. And when I came up through the ranks, through my culinary apprenticeship, I kind of was always a banquet guy. And then, years went on. And actually, Brandon and I partnered way back in the early days in 92. And we took off at Lonzo Hermosa Inn and went over to the Royal Palms. We did a whole bunch of stuff. And then we opened up Michael's at the Citadel. And I'll tell you, one of the best things we had there was all our banquets and the banquet space that we did. And we continued on with that. We just continued on with banquets and, we kind of rode that. And then we opened a banquet company. And that's basically the direction and the synopsis of what we do.
Oh, my gosh. And Brandon, this story of what it's become, it's not just one catering company now. Can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, how you grew the company?
Well, let me go back to Michael a little bit. So we didn't find the catering company, the catering business. The catering business found us. If you were to ask Michael and I what we were 25 years ago, we would have answered with, we're restaurant guys. We own restaurants. We open restaurants. That's what we do. And through the beginning of Michael's at the Citadel, the opportunity came to, let's go do a party at somebody's house. And the way we staffed it was the guy that had the pickup truck was the server, because we needed him to take the tables. So it literally found us. And we're we did one. It's well, that wasn't really all that hard. So we kept doing them, and the thing developed. And over the years, now we have many different brands. We're offering many different levels of service from a catering standpoint. And we now are kind of out of the restaurant business, although we have restaurant roots and a restaurant mentality, but we provide it in a catering setting. So our goal ultimately is to provide a restaurant experience at your house or in the middle of the desert, wherever you want to have a party. So it kind of found us. We didn't find it.
Awesome. What's the craziest event that you guys have done so far in your career, Brandon?
The craziest event, we did do a party at 2 in the middle of the desert, where the guests, the soon-to-be engaged couple arrived via helicopter in the middle of the desert. But that was only a party of 2. The crazy event we do is the Waste Management Phoenix Open, which is 40,000 people. So we literally have done
a day.
40,000 a day. That's right, 40,000 a day. So we've done 2 to 40,000 and every number in between. The craziest event that I've ever done is the business that we do in the summertime, which is we feed wildland firefighters for 3 or 4 months every year for the last 14 years. That's the most extreme form of catering you can have, if you ask me. It's wilderness, it's remote, and it's intense. But for me, that's my craziest experience, is doing some of the work with the Forest Service.
Amazing. And Stavros, obviously, like you're the business dev guy that helped grow this company. Can you talk a little bit about your roots and how you got involved with M Culinary too?
Absolutely. So I started out in college studying Chinese language and political science, so I'm uniquely qualified for the catering industry. And clearly putting my degree to work. But I moved out to Arizona almost 20 years ago and had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. A friend of mine worked for a local catering company and said, you should come check this out, pick up some shifts, get some extra cash. I said, what the hell? I have no idea what I'm doing anyway, so let's do it. And somehow it got under my skin. And I started booking events and realized I was pretty good at it and had a lot of fun with it. A lot of my friends were doing office jobs and bored to tears and just miserable in their career already, and they're only 23. I was actually having a lot of fun meeting new people all the time and doing crazy stuff. Eventually I went to work for Aramark, got exposure to large format national events, traveled all over the US, worked with clients in every state, and got to see how a large corporation functions, or in some cases dysfunctions. And 7.5 years ago, almost 8 years ago, actually it was 8 years ago this month now that I think about it, Brandon and I started talking, and he offered me a job. And after a few weeks,
I said you had to work here. I didn't offer you a job.
He did say I had to work there.
I went and found you and said, Stavros, you need to work here. What's it going to take?
And it apparently took not much convincing, though, because really the way Brandon and Michael presented the company, he's right. I had to come work here. This is an extremely interesting bunch of people. And the biggest thing that Brandon said to me that Michael echoed was, you get to be an entrepreneur here. This is a company that is driven by entrepreneurs. Whether or not you have ownership stake in the company, you're treated like an owner, and your input is valued like an owner. And on the business development side, I have the attention span of a housefly. Some people call it ADD. Some people call it, mental incapacity. But it's both. The biz dev thing is perfect for me, though, because my favorite part of this gig is meeting the people, getting them excited about what we do. And it's not hard to get them excited about what we do. They talked about the Phoenix Open. I remember going to the Phoenix Open as a guest, and ironically, I was always a guest in the Michael's catering tent because I got tickets through a vendor of theirs. And so every year I'd come to the Open and I'd be in their tent, never thought anything of it, never thought I'd be on the other side of that. And my first Phoenix Open as an employee, Brandon took me around and gave me the grand tour, and it blew me away. The logistics that go into it, the skill that goes into it, the commitment that goes into it, the fact that, M Culinary is feeding, over the course of 5 days, 200,000 people. On one day alone, we're feeding 40,000 plus people steak and salmon across an entire golf course. And it's perfect every time. So it just blew me away. And I knew instantly that I made the right choice in coming to this company. And it's hard to believe it's been almost 8 years.
Time flies.
Time does fly, man.
And not only that, Michael, we're planning for it right now as we speak. We are in the middle of developing new designs and new buffets and things like that for all of that. So it's a fun time. It's a long time too.
Awesome. Well, I'm curious to know, because you guys are kind of like event lifers. Like, you guys all discovered this and said, like, this is going to be our thing, and kind of came out of obviously like the restaurant side of things and said, no, we're going after events. Do you guys think that you would be in restaurants now if you weren't in the events industry, or what would you think you'd be doing if you weren't in the events industry? I want to kick off with Stavros. He seems like he's got something.
If I wasn't going to be in this industry, I would actually go back to school and go to medical school. I want to be a surgeon. There is something about hacking into a human body and seeing how it works inside.
That's strange.
It is definitely strange.
Yeah.
Not the serial killer kind of hacking into a body, but no, I've always said that if ever and Brandon actually can attest to having knee surgery, he just had a knee replacement, but if ever I had to have like a knee replaced or something, I would just want the doctors to prop me up, localize the bejesus out of my knee, and let me watch them slice it open and move all the body parts around inside. I just think that would be so cool. So yeah, I'd be a surgeon if I could do something else.
Strange, Stavros.
Wow,
Maybe
I think that's going to take the list.
Maybe you shouldn't operate in the morning because of those like 75 ounces of coffee you drink.
I do have a little bit of a coffee addiction. That is true.
I love it. I love it. What about you, Brandon? If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
No, I was born into the restaurant business. My dad had a restaurant. I don't really know much other. So I would be in some form of food and beverage. The event side of this, like catering found us. The event side found us too. It wasn't by design. The things we do at the Phoenix Open were never by some master business plan. I would be at some food and beverage capacity doing something, hotel, restaurant, something like that. But it would be in the F&B business.
Very cool. Very cool.
I would never be a surgeon.
Me neither. Chef Michael, what about you? Precision with the chef skills. What would you be doing today?
I would probably, as I've grown through this process, and my main passion is fly fishing. So I don't know if I would have done that then, but today I would be a fly fishing guide or something like that.
Awesome.
Pretty sure Michael wants that to be his what do you call that? The secondary career. What's the career
Moonlighting?
later in the career you get after you retire from your first job. I'm pretty sure Michael would jump right into fly fishing guide in a heartbeat.
The waning years.
The waning years.
After you get your knees fixed.
Oh yeah. That too.
All right, guys. Well, before we get into some of the rest of our questions, I want to remind anybody who's joining us live to please join in on the chat. One of the things we love about this new Zoom platform that we're using is the fact that we've got the live chat going. So join us there. Also, if you don't feel like joining us right there in the chat, there is also a Q&A function in there. Or if you're watching along, feel free to use Twitter, #EventIcons. It's in the name. You might as well use it. So go ahead. Please, we love it when you join us live, but feel free to throw out any questions at any time that you've got for our guests. But I want to ask is, as you look forward at kind of the near future here, what events are you guys really excited about catering? So, what's coming up? What is the event? What makes it exciting? What are you looking forward to kind of in the near future? Chef, why don't we start with you?
We are actually in, I think it's this next week, we're doing a Brazilian party, which is kind of fun. We get to kick it up a little bit, do some cool Brazilian food at the art museum. So it's kind of a fun, great event. I'm excited about that. I love some of the dishes. We do the braised mole chicken, the shrimp bobo, and there's a whole bunch of really cool Brazilian dishes we get to roll out. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And as I was saying earlier, we're actually planning for, the Barrett-Jackson event and the Phoenix Open event coming up and some of the things that are changing inside of those tents and stuff like that. So it's been exciting and really fun.
Are you going to have the little red-green things that say more food come, less food come kind of thing?
The rock
restaurants that they have?
Well, it'll be a crowd of people. So what we're going to be doing actually is we've designed these really cool big white platters and we pass small plates on there. That's one of the new exciting things about catering is, everybody talks about the microbrews and the small plates and all that kind of stuff. We actually now take that and we make action stations either live there in the facility or in the back of the house. And we produce little tiny plates and we have the waiters go by and instead of passing hors d'oeuvres, we pass these small plates to a really fun audience. That's it's going to be electric and live at the event as well. So it should be really fun.
Cool. Well, I know we want to get into trends, so let's put a pin on that for now and just say, so Stavros, anything on the biz dev side that you've seen, like, oh man, I can't wait to see that come in on your side?
On the event side, you mean?
Yeah, something like, oh yeah, like you see it come in, you're like, I want to be there for that one maybe, or something along those lines.
the stuff that's coming up that we're doing that I'm excited about is actually we've got, well, you said you wanted to put the pin in trend, so we'll wait on talking about one of the stations we're doing. But we actually have in December back-to-back holiday event. Back-to-back, yeah. So what we do is we've actually got an exclusive venue in North Scottsdale, Westworld. And we're taking Westworld and we're building a New York themed event. Food stations are all New York themed, decor is New York themed, entertainment's New York themed. And we're using that space and that concept back to back for corporate clients. So 1,200 to 2,200 people, scaling it up, scaling it down, back up again. It's something we started doing 2 years ago. And we're hopefully getting to the point where someday we'll be able to do this over the course of 2 full weekends. You know, it's great for us, it's great for our partners, it's great for the industry where you can actually set up something once, reuse that venue for multiple clients over the course of a period of time and deliver an exceptional value for the client because you're now sharing costs across multiple days for the same equipment, the same materials. So you're delivering a value to the client that they wouldn't otherwise get. We get to do the food that we want to do. We get to design the event that we want to sell, and we get to have the fun with it. So that's something that's coming up that on the biz dev side I'm really excited about. The other thing is partnerships that we keep forming. There's a lot of organizations locally and nationally that we are either joining or aligning ourselves with, and that's creating new opportunities for us, for our employees, for our clients. And it gets my business development juices flowing because for me, I'm always looking for the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And, you know, Brandon and I both are revenue junkies. We want more and more of that. Michael just wants to do great events and cook well and serve lots of people and then get the hell out of town as fast as possible. So all this stuff is happening for us and we're really, really excited about it.
And Brandon, are there any events you're looking forward to?
Yeah, you know, there's a pretty big sports contingency in our company. So we have a relationship with college football playoffs. So we travel every January to do work with ESPN. So this year in January, it's in Atlanta. We were in Tampa Bay last year. So we do large-scale events for ESPN, VIP-style events. And every year it's a different venue, and it's a national venue. So we travel with staff and personnel. Everybody comes from here, the majority of the folks with our equipment. And we go sit up in downtown Atlanta somewhere. So we're in the planning phases of that. We have a site inspection in a couple of weeks to figure out how to do that event. But being part of something that's so big, so national, that happens every year, the college football champ game is pretty exciting. So that happens in early January, and that's kind of the beginning of our January run where we do that, and then we do the Fiesta Bowl prior to that. Then we do that. Then we move into Barrett-Jackson, the Phoenix Open. So December 20th to February 20th is a blur for us every single day. It's like, what day is it again? So having that affiliation nationally with ESPN has been tremendous for us, and it allows us to get out of town here and do some really, really cool things in outside stadiums and in tremendous places. And this year happens to be Atlanta, Georgia.
I mean, it's always good to be busy in the events industry, right?
Oh, yeah. We taste that work.
I love it. And I love, Stavros, what you said about the whole idea of companies going back to back to save clients money by sharing resources. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think that's something on the AV industry that we're really passionate about trying to do too, because it's the same idea that people don't realize that, hey, if you have a stage set up, that's like a one-time setup cost, and then you have the labor to manage it. Same with you guys. Like if you can get all this stuff there, there's just humongous savings. So I love that you guys are doing that for show. There's actually a company called Show Slice that is specializing in trying to bring companies together to do this resource sharing. So I love that you guys are doing it. It just shows that you guys care about your clients.
Well, I'm going to speak for Stavros for a second. About 5 years ago, he came up with the idea, because we're exclusive at the venue. It's a relatively large venue, and he came up with an idea called Flurry. And the idea behind Flurry was to do a shared environment for smaller companies that could buy into like 100 people to a 2,000 person event. Flurry didn't take off exactly as he anticipated, but what did happen is now we have large companies that have taken the whole night, and we're using the same infrastructure and decor package, and everybody's benefiting from it, including us, right? Because we're back to back on these things. They're saving because everything's being shared across 2 or 3 different companies in that process. So shout out to Stavros. It was his brainchild. And we actually all laughed at him when he's like, what are you smoking now? And at the end of the day, December 8, 9, and 10 is an insane weekend for us. And we're turning that vision 5 years ago is what it is today. And hopefully we're going to continue this every year. And we want to expand it and maybe go to 2 weekends. And this year's New York theme. Maybe we go Mardi Gras next year and we go out and find these larger companies. And they all like it because they're all saving money.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, I know that we were kind of teasing at trends a little bit. I want to skip ahead and definitely dive right into it because it seems like everyone's really excited to talk about trends. But instead of talking about like the best trends that are coming, I want to talk about the worst trends first because I think those are the ones that most people don't think about. Like, so I want to ask you guys, what are the worst food trends that you see that are happening right now that you're like, dear God, I wish this would die. Why are we doing this? Can we just move on from this trend? Why is this even happening? Maybe it is starting to die, but whatever, or maybe it's just starting to come. I don't know. So Chef Michael's got a big, humongous grin on his face right now because he's ready to kill some trends right now. Do you have any trends that you think that you wish would die?
Well, I didn't know you were going to hit me with what's the worst one. I would say for me personally, I think the old-fashioned plated dinner is a trend that needs to change because people really like to, when they go to a big party, they like to mingle, social. And when you try to get people to sit down for a dinner like that, it inevitably doesn't ever go on time. And then there's, all of the 17 or 20 different varieties of health issues that people have with this. So what we love to do, and some of the things that I think that we could change to, is the small plate idea and do that kind of thing where we're passing small plates and action stations where they get to see the food fresh. And then we can actually have things with, hey, this is a cream sauce, no sauce on that, or nothing on this. So we can actually take the food allergies and address it that way and come up with something that's really fun, exciting. So I guess I'm going backwards to say the old plated 3-course needs to trend out.
Interesting. So I'm asking like a challenging question in that. So like, for example, you guys know the Zonies, very formal gala dinner. Do you think a non-plated dinner can work for some of these formal events, or do you think you should still do a plated dinner, or do you think you can pull off a stations or past food in that way?
Well, I know we can, and I'll tell you the other part of that whole 3-course is that typically it's always a beef dish. It's either beef or chicken. You can't do pork or fish. It's very limited. So when we do stations, we're able to do like cool fresh fish here and a pork something there and a beef something here. And we're able to actually showcase really good, fun food instead of just doing a salad, a chicken dish, and a dessert. So that's what I think.
What do you think is a tip that you would have for being able to pull that off for a formal event?
Planning and having a strategic plan and not putting all the stations together so it becomes one big conga line of stations and it becomes a buffet. So, like planning where you have something in different corners or something in the middle or whatever, and then have it so where people can pick and go, right? It's quick action and you can eat as many as you want and so on and so forth. I think planning is really the key.
Will, you mentioned the Zonies, and that's a good example of an event that it's an industry-specific event. It's attended by industry people. If ever there's going to be a group of people that are willing to try something different, it's us. Yeah. In terms of an awards event, you could easily do a stations party rather than a plated. You just have to time your awards and make it more like a Hollywood Academy Award style, where there's either dinner before or dinner after, but you get everybody into a space, theater style. Do the awards, call them up on stage, do the presentation. Hey, everybody, woohoo. And then afterward, you break for dinner or you eat dinner beforehand, and then afterward, you do dessert. But you break it up so that it's in the middle, but that way you can actually have a little more fun. There is a time and a place for a plated dinner, but I think what Michael's onto something. We're finding more and more with our social gala clients. We do a lot of galas every year. More and more, they're moving away from the plated function because as the next generation of donors and the next generation of event chairs are coming up, they want to have more fun. They want it's all about being experiential, not being formal. And the more we can accommodate that, I think the happier our clients and their guests seem to be, and the more engaged they are. And from our not-for-profit client perspective, the more money they raise.
I love it. I love it.
It's working out.
Well, while we're on to you, what sort of worst trends are you seeing, Stavros, that you think should die?
Mason jars need to die a slow, painful death. If I see another goddamn salad in a mason jar, I'm going to smash it on the ground.
Hey, I resemble that.
I know. I said it, buddy. No, but I think there's a few other things. As Michael said, moving away from the more formal into the informal. But mason jars are one. I think crappy food is a trend that people need to move away from. I think there's, it's funny, as our clients become more and more savvy, there seems to be this tolerance, though, for so many people because they're always on budget that they're willing to accept crappy food. And I just think life is too short for crappy food. But basically, it's any trend that traps you in one place for too long and just gets tired after a while. There's something that's in my head, and my ADD is killing me right now because I can't think of what I just wanted to say that I wanted it to die. I don't know. I'll come back. Come back to me after Brandon. I'll come up with another one.
Well, you're up, Brandon. Why don't you tell us about your least favorite trends?
Well, I think the general public in the United States is a little bit hypocritical when they talk about healthy food. And I don't think healthy food should go away. But I think a lot of people talk healthy, but don't eat healthy, right? So it's a lifestyle change to be healthy and have healthy eating. But I think so many people talk about bringing in healthy conversation for a banquet event when it's not what the people really want to consume at the end of the day. So it's not that I'm not a healthy guy and don't want to be a healthy guy, but really people talk healthy and eat Burger King in general, and it's what they do. And I think there's some people that do that, but I think I don't know if it's a trend or not, but I think it's a hypocritical position when so many events come to us and say, we want to do healthy food. No, nobody really wants to eat the couscous station. They'd rather have the shrimp and pork loin, right? So I think it's a trend that exists and it's a way of life, but I don't think it's all that accurate or correct with today's eating habits, especially when you're out at a fancy event. Nobody's stopping at the couscous station.
Well, a couple of people do.
A couple of people do, but not the masses. That's for sure.
No, and that thank you, Brandon. That just jogged my memory of what I wanted to say. The trend toward excessive personalized dietary preferences. You're invited to an event as a guest.
Selectitarians?
Selectitarians are a perfect example of this. They're not a vegetarian, but that particular night they decide they don't want to have beef again at an event, or they don't want the chicken. They're going to do the vegetarian. So that's one thing, but it's beyond that. It's now there's this sense of entitlement, I think, that a lot of people have when they go to an event that, well, I'm gluten-free and I have leaky gut and I have this and I have that and and I don't like this, and they tell the host all of this stuff. And so now our clients are coming to us saying, hey, what are we willing to accommodate? And it's just getting to the point where either bring your own food or don't come to the event, because how do you expect a catered function to satisfy, out of, let's say, a dinner for 300 people, 200 special dietary requests? So I think our trend toward that self-entitlement about your personal dietary is a little out of control, and it's a trend that is actually threatening our industry. It's not just a problem, it's legitimately threatening our industry.
Wow. Wow. I love that you guys are willing to take that stance and say that too, because I think that's needed. Go ahead.
Will, let me add something too. And that's where we're saying in the parties that we do at the stations, we could accommodate all of those things. So if you're one of those persons, go to that station. If you're a big meat guy, go to the other station. We got meat and potatoes and heavy sauce. We got fish over there. So that's the trend. I think that's the best way to go with any party, is to do a little bit of something, and it incorporates all of those needs.
Wow. I mean, mic drop moment right there.
Well, I mean, I certainly am in the camp of getting rid of the mason jars. I've been served one too many things where it overcomplicates. It's like, I just wanted the, grilled cheese sandwich. I didn't need to have bread in one jar, cheese in one jar, So I'm with you on those things, but I want to bring it back to, let's bring it back up again. Let's get back to the trends that are actually positive that we're looking forward to. So guys, what are we looking forward to as far as positive trends, things that are really hot, things that are really the good things that we like to see, the best trends of the year? We'll go back through in reverse order. So Stavros, you kind of came in there at the end, so we'll go to you first.
Fun food, fun presentation. Those are the trends that I'm really excited about. Chef Michael, our pastry chef, Chef Kurt, myself, and a couple of other people are working on a donut luge right now, taking a food that's totally on trend. Donuts are hot. Everybody loves donuts, but we want to do something a little bit different. So we actually drew some inspiration from a catering company that we're friends with in Houston who created this donut luge station. And we're going to put our own little spin on it. Literally, we're going to put a spin on it. We're going to go with some sort of little tubing action.
Wait, what's a donut luge? I have no idea what a donut luge is. Can you explain what a donut luge is?
Yeah, when you make the donuts behind a wall, and it comes out behind a wall down a luge, and it goes right into the powdered sugar. And you pick it up, put it on a plate, and you have several different warm, squirty style sauces and toppings, and you get to make all those funky things like a bacon donut, a sprinkles donut, a candied walnut donut, whatever you want. That's your donut.
Yeah.
I'm taking the donut luge over the vodka luge any day.
Good choice.
So right there, right now.
Awesome.
So, but that I think is the trend that I'm really excited about the most is people, like I said, they want that experience now. It's not just food on a plate. They want it to be interactive. They want it to be fun. And it's funny, when we talk about it internally, you see the chef's eyes just start to widen because they get to do something new. And then we challenge our ops team with actually building this and making it work. And then we just have to figure out how to transport it without breaking it. So, and that's the hardest part.
Well, we'll get it there. We need to get it back.
We break it catering. But no, I think so that's a big trend that I really like to see. And as Michael said, I think more of the stations for formal events and large scale events going toward interactive chef action stations rather than the traditional plated or served or even family style. I think those are the trends I'm most excited about.
Brandon, you're up.
I'm going to stay away from the food right now and talk a little about the beverage side. Small batch breweries, small batch bourbons, the liquor products, the different drinks that are out there right now. I think we try to stay ahead of that the best we can with specialty drinks for events and really do a lot of great things with beer dinners and matching food with beer, not just food with wine. So I think beer is here to stay for quite some time. I think it's not just a trend. I think everything's a trend, but I think that trend's here for some time. It took a little bit of the wine dinner side away and ate away at that a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think some of the creative beverage things with the smaller breweries and the smaller intimate now, there are a lot of distilleries out there, especially in Arizona, I've seen that have popped up that they're making some really cool things. And as a result, you have some really cool options on the beverage side at the bars.
So we got a question from the audience. What about cider in addition to beer? Are you guys starting to see that as well?
Oh yeah, same thing. That's another great comment, right? So not only do you have these great beers, but a lot of these small breweries are making a lot of flavored ciders, a lot of fruity kind of things that aren't just satisfying the beer crowd. They're satisfying the females in the crowd potentially because it's not a heavy stout or something like that. So I think that's a great comment. That goes along the same lines. Yes, that's very accurate.
And it's great to cook with. We actually can do a lot with beer and cider in particular, both savory and sweet. It's a nice change of pace.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Amazing. Chef Michael? Go ahead, Brent.
No, I just wanted to, somebody did ask me recently about what was the next after microbrews. I mean, would you say it's that micro distillery? Is that kind of the next thing that's coming behind it?
Yeah, there's a lot of that in our state of Arizona for sure. Where they're small batch distillers. They're doing a lot of creative flavored things with honeys and fruits. They're making bourbon, right? But they're making bourbon with different twists and different angles with all different kind of flavorings. And I do think that that's the next thing. So, people started making beer at home now. Now there's breweries and smaller batch things like that. But I definitely think the distilleries are up and coming for sure. I think that's a trend here for a little while as well.
And now on to chef. Sorry, I just didn't mean to hijack it. I was just that's something I had already on my mind.
All good. The trends and some of the things we're doing right now that I'm really excited about. I'll tell you this. Being an Italian guy, somebody would say, "Hey, Chef Michael, your favorite food is Italian food?" No, not really. It's all Asian, all different kinds of Asian. One of the things we're doing, Michael Stavros and I and some of the team, we're working on dim sum carts. So at this big party, we're going to have 4 dim sum carts running around an Asian set. It's going to look like a Chinese shop, that's going to be basically glass. All the guys will have the little hats on, and they'll be steaming pork buns, dumplings, shumai, and we'll have carts going around, and then we'll have little plates. So we'll lift the steam up, pull that out, put it on the plate, and serve it to them right there, and they'll have 4 of them running around this little area. So, I mean, things like that. Taking New York deli and have a real pastrami sliced right there on the spot, right in front of you, making the sandwich, and then have all the condiments, be it, sauerkraut, different flavored mustards, different cheese fondues that you can make from Gouda to Gruyere and so on and so forth, and make these things. A lot of things that people like these days is variety. So they like to be able to have something, but have it in 2-3 different ways. So that's kind of fun too. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to. We really got some between the donut luge and the past Chinese plates. It's going to be fantastic.
I'm getting so hungry.
So am I.
I'm getting so hungry.
Will, if I could just say one other thing, the flip side of that dietary issue that we were talking about, the flip side of that is it's really pushed the culinary world to get creative and to come up with some really, really interesting dishes using ingredients that were kind of out of the mainstream for a while and now are becoming more mainstream. And, to Brandon's point about the couscous station, he's right. But if you do it in an interesting way, whether it's plated, whether it's a station item, you're going to get everybody talking about it. And it does start to get the culinary juices flowing a little bit. And that spills all the way from hors d'oeuvre to dessert, everything in between. So I do see there is a positive side to that trend.
Awesome. I love it. We're actually getting a really good question from the audience. And I'm not sure if you guys are able to answer this question, but they asked that when you mention things like Brazilian parties and dim sum carts, do you ever get concerned about offending or being accused of cultural appropriation, or like offending someone for not necessarily representing the culture to its fullest, or, taking the stereotypical, let's say, for example? Do you ever get worried about that, Chef Michael?
Myself? No. We try to do one thing, and whatever that is, we try to do it the best we can, and then make a few varieties from that and not get too far out there. So keep it tight and keep what people like. You go to a Chinese restaurant and you do dim sum, that's what you do. So that's what we serve.
Awesome. Stavros or Brandon, do you guys have any other thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think if you're authentic, if you're authentic to the concept and the cuisine, why would that be, what'd you call it? Cultural appropriation. I don't think you can be, you got to be just real about it. And I think good dim sum is good dim sum. You just got to cook it right and make it taste the way it's supposed to. I don't think it's insulting to a culture because you're trying to do their food. You just have to be real about it, is how I feel.
I love it. Awesome. So on to some more questions that we have. So I want to kind of do a step in your guys' shoes scenario. A lot of times, for example, people always want to ask us AV companies, like, so what should we be doing to help the AV company more? But also at the same time, how should we be helping the caterers? So a question that we have is, what's a big challenge for caterers that planners often overlook? So what's a challenge that you guys constantly run into that you think that planners really need to know about? So, Stavros, you want to kind of kick that one off?
A big thing that we run into with planners is the priority that food is. We're the type of catering company and the type of catering team that believes if the food's important to you, then we're your catering company. If the food isn't important to your event, we're not the catering company for you. And it's because we put food first. And for us, food is one of those 2 experiences in life that uses all 5 of your senses at once and leaves you feeling satisfied. So you might as well make it good. So a lot of times with planners, they'll confuse or not give full information, say, regarding timelines. which completely throws us. And a lot of times they will allow their client to push the timeline during an event and change the timeline during an event, which, and I mean this with all due respect, from an audiovisual or a technical point of view, you can roll with that punch a lot easier. If we've got Chef Michael and the culinary team in the back and they're timing that food just right, because we cook everything fresh on site, if they're timing it just right and the planner and the client have allowed that timeline to go completely off kilter, it can really, really damage the quality of the food. And now that becomes not only get the guest experience, but that's our reputation on the line. So if we can work together to make sure, and in fact, we ran into a situation like that with one of our top clients. This year, we're doing the event again with them, and they committed to us, you know what, you're absolutely right. We sat down, we talked it through, we explained to them why it was important. They're going to make sure that that timeline is honored.
I love it. I've heard that multiple times. So I think that's a really, really great point. Brandon, what about you?
Yeah, I think to piggyback a little bit on what Stavros said, I think sometimes people underestimate the back of the house and what it takes to do events. There's so much focus on the decor. There's so much focus on the entrance, the sense of arrival. There's so much focus on the way that the buffets look or the room looks or the lighting. Everybody forgets about, well, how the hell we're going to do this? And sometimes we get into situations which are awkward because we just don't have enough space. And if you're trying to create a restaurant-style meal in a banquet environment, it takes sometimes more space than you can imagine for us to come in and create that environment and get that done. And I don't think that's ever on the forefront sometimes of planners. There's certain planners that do think about that, and they are very good at it. And there's some that it's a secondary thought. And no, we can't work in that 8x8 room. We have 40 servers. Didn't you think about this? We have 16 chefs. We need to have this space. And it's like, well, you can't have that space. That's parking. Well, okay, if we can't have that space, all these people that are parking are not going to have a very good experience with their food and beverage. So I think sometimes it's just underestimated. We often step in and hopefully we can make adjustments prior to the event, but it takes a lot of space to do a good job with catering sometimes. You just got to keep that in your mind.
Amazing. Well, speaking of back of house, Chef, what are there any other, things that big challenges that you wish that planners knew about?
Like let's say this Sunday, we're doing an event outside in a backyard patio and there's 20% chance of rain. And when you start to plan a party, what's your backup on the rain plan and if we're cooking out in the middle of the open, we have to take that into consideration. So this party is a backyard party. I don't think the inside of the house is going to be able to handle it, but we'll see how that goes. And I agree with both of those guys. When you're outside, there's weather, there's dust throwing down, a tarp or astroturf. So we have to take all that in concern. And as Brandon said, there's lots of timing. And then when Michael said, hey, the party just pushed 30 minutes and I just put the beef in the oven and it has to cook and rest. I have to pull that back out, retime everything, stop the cooking of the vegetables, stop. And then everybody stands there and then I retime and then we go forward again. So yeah, just to reiterate what those guys said, there's a lot of the back of the house and as well as on the service side too. They have to regroup as well, So yeah, just all those things.
Amazing.
We did actually have another question come in from the audience, and that is there anything that you've been asked to make that you've had to say no to? Which is a great question. So, we run into that kind of thing no matter what your job is. So, how about on the kitchen side, on the catering side? Is there something you've had to say no to?
I guess I'll take this, guys.
Okay.
The one thing that I've said, and this is since Brandon and I have been in business for 24 years, I cannot make his mom's pierogies, and I cannot make Stavros's mom's meatballs. So when somebody says, I would like you to do this recipe from my mother or my grandmother, that's a really difficult thing because ingredients are different around the country. She may be East Coast, we're West Coast, and ingredients are different. The procedures, even though it's a recipe. You ever seen a recipe that's from like a grandma? It's like just written word. There's no real recipe. It's the stuff on the page. I guarantee you, if you ask anybody, what's your grandma's recipes? It's like, well, here it is, and you have to figure it out. So, yeah, those are the hardest things is when someone says, can you cook my mom's or my aunt's, or we went to Hawaii and we got to have this. Those are the hardest things to us to do. And I always put a disclaimer. I will try to do my best to serve you, but I will do my best. And if it doesn't come out, I apologize.
But you never say no. You don't say no.
No, we don't ever say no, but that's the hardest thing for us to accomplish. Agree or?
I agree. Well, the one thing we have to say no to is kosher.
Yes.
Because we don't have the facility to be kosher, so we have to third party any kind of kosher request. So Michael, we don't have the ability to cook kosher. So that would be one that would be a hard no. We can't. We can cook kosher style and make sure the ingredients are matched up right, but we cannot do real kosher. So we are, at that point, we are forced to third party that. That's a no, hard no. Michael's is a we'll try, but kosher would be a hard no.
Interesting. So along the same lines, I'm curious to know, in addition to things like you've had to say no to, how in general do you manage those kind of more demanding clients? Like you said, whether it's the food issues that you mentioned before, or just, maybe it's wedding jitters or something along those lines. Who winds up dealing with that the most? And maybe you've got some tips on how to deal with those types of clients that are perhaps a little bit more demanding.
I think we all kind of take turns on that. We are very blessed with a really fantastic sales team who is our front line. There are event producers and designers, and they're the ones who field the clients up front, and they then translate the client's needs to the rest of the team. When it comes to what you so politely call difficult clients, you just have to know how to push back. And if you can, there's immediately 3 or 4 clients that pop right into my head that I won't say their names because we all know them. But, you just have to listen. You have to give them a response. And it usually is, it's never, as Brandon said, it's not that we're going to say no. We're going to say, well, maybe not this, but this. And we try to steer the client a little bit differently. But the fact is, there are some clients who just want what clients want. And as long as you stipulate right out of the gate, we're willing to meet your demand, but be prepared for this, and that contingency, then we're all covered. But sometimes it is just taking them by the hand, listening, letting them beat you up verbally for a while, taking it like a man and giving it right back to them and going, okay, now it's my turn. And we're going to tell you what we are going to do. And this is the way it's going to be. And if you don't like it, then we'll part ways as friends. And if you do like it, well, we just made a client for life. One of the best things I've always found in my career is screwing up. Screwing up with a client gives you the opportunity to show them your recovery. And if you can recover well, they're going to trust you for life. They might trust you even more than if everything had been perfect, because they're seeing what you're willing to do to make something right, because you didn't live up to your own brand promise. You let yourselves down more than you even let the client down. And you're going to fight like hell to make sure that never, ever happens again. And that difficult client, all of a sudden, never questions you again. They never challenge you, other than to come up with a new idea. And they are with you for life. So I actually love the difficult clients. I'm more than happy to take those on and let the team take the easy clients. I think it's more fun. But that's also because I come from a very loud, very ethnic East Coast family that, I remember my wife, the first Thanksgiving we ever spent together as husband and wife, my mother and I are in my mother's kitchen. My wife is outside through the family room, outside on my mother's back patio, on her mobile phone talking to her father. And at one point, her father says to her, is Michael yelling at his mother? And she said, no, they're just planning dinner. And really what it comes down to is we're just talking over each other. And Brandon's from Jersey, Michael's from New York, I'm from Boston. And we all have this East Coast, we ain't taking anything from anybody attitude, but at the same time, we know when to be pussycats. So yeah, bring on the difficult clients. I love them.
Well, guys, the hour is flying by, as it always does, unfortunately, too much. We want to remind folks, if you do have questions for any of the guys here, please hit us up in the chat, the Zoom chat, or the Q&A app, or on Twitter, #EventIcons. While we roll into kind of our standard closing questions that we have every week. Now, you guys have touched on a lot of this stuff throughout the day-to-day, but if you could pick only one, what is the one tip that you would have for event planners, especially when it comes to catering, but it doesn't have to be, but certainly obviously interested in your take on that one tip that you would have for planners. Stavros, let's start with you.
Don't pretend you're a chef. That's my rule for any client, especially a planner. A lot of times planners say, oh my God, I tried this, we should do this, we should do that, without even talking to the caterer first. So next thing you know, they're coming and telling us, oh, the client wants this, that, and the other. Does the client want that, or do you want that? You know, so you just got to be careful about that. So my one tip is talk to your caterer and talk to an actual chef before you go planning a menu on behalf of the caterer.
Deep.
Brandon?
I have two. Can I have two?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
The first is understand the difference between a dietary restriction and a preference. Okay?
All right.
That Stavros touched on this a minute ago. I mean, that is expanding so much. And a lot of planners, when you ask the question, be specific about the question. Do you have an allergic condition? Don't say, do you like onion? I think some of the things that we have are so broad, they're not really dietary restrictions, they're preferences. And we're in a high volume, large scale venue. It's difficult sometimes. So understand the difference between a preference and a restriction. We understand gluten-free, we're all about it. And we can accommodate all those things. So anyway, understand those two things. And the second one is don't forget the back of the house. I said that already. You gotta understand that for every front of the house, there's an appropriate back of the house. And the back of the house will make the party much even more so than the decor and the lights and all the fancy stuff in the front. So don't forget the back of the house.
That sounds familiar.
I couldn't come up with one.
Super familiar.
Right. No, I meant for us on the AV world too. So I wasn't jiving.
You know too. Yes.
Yeah. It's absolutely what happens behind the stage is often more important.
Wires somewhere, right? I got you.
You got it. Chef Michael, how about you? What's your one tip for event planners?
Well, those two guys had some great options, and I would take two, and I'd add Brandon's to mine as well with the back of the house. But my one tip to the planner is, typically they do a tasting. And when they do a tasting, they impart too much of their own likes and dislikes, and they exclude really the feel of the whole group or the entire menu. When you're doing, maybe a huge party, 500, 600, 800, 1,000 people, and there's like 6 stations, and you do a tasting and you put stuff out there and they're like, I don't like mole. Well, it's a Southwestern thing and we're doing this, and that. Maybe the mole goes well and this is the reason why. And then what they do is they cut it out because they don't like it, but people are coming to Arizona and maybe they want to taste that. So my thing is, don't just put your own preferences and likes into the tasting. Understand the entire form, the entire event and what we're doing there, what we're trying to get done. So that's what I have. I mean, and recently it was one of those things where we just had a client, I won't name any names, and we presented something and they're like, and I told the sales girl, I said, so-and-so, I said, why did they cut my shake and salad station out? We have a cool shake and salad, like a bartender. They do like a salad bar in a jar, and then they pick the dressing and they come and do it. Well, I guess the person didn't really get it. And then I said, please, can we show you? Once we did it and she accepted it, we did it. She says, oh my God, I love this. So it was fantastic. So I think that don't put your own feeling into it. Understand what it's all going to be and then make the assessment and pick that stuff that works for the party for the whole over.
Awesome. I think the one like overarching theme I think that you guys all had too is that trusting your partner, your caterer, and that they know what they're doing. And I've always found successful in the dozen or so times I've had to hire a caterer is that a lot of times I just say, here is how many people I have coming. Here's my budget, and you guys come back with a solution. I say, great. I like don't argue it. I just say, I know you guys have this down and are good to go. And I think that's definitely, I think, a way that I think all vendors who are watching this are probably shaking their heads. I wish that would happen for sure. But a lot of times you guys have really thought this through. You guys aren't just throwing stuff together. And, you guys have taken into account all the events you've ever done, not just this one specific event, which, if I've hired a caterer probably a dozen times, I have far little experience compared to the hundreds of thousands of events that you guys have done. So,
have we catered for you?
Yes. In fact, you guys have done a bunch of my clients' events. That's why I love you guys.
All right.
So, well, if I could, there's one other thing that kind of goes along with that trust piece. And that is, when you're the planner, don't be afraid to let your different vendors talk directly to each other. So often planners will silo everything. Oh, this is AV. Oh, this is decor. This is rental. This is catering. And we don't end up all meeting together until we do the final walkthrough 3 weeks before the event. If we have the opportunity to work with audiovisual, to work with the rental, to work with the decorator, we can actually start all combining our expertise with the planner, who can then bring back this amazing plan to their client. But it's just letting us all get together first, or at least letting us connect with each other directly, and not being afraid of what we're going to do behind, closed doors. I mean, trust in all of us, not just the caterer, not just the TV. Trust in all of us coming together and working together to come up with the best idea.
Perfect. I couldn't have said better myself. Amazing.
Voila.
Well, we have a couple minutes left. I want to jump into my favorite part of the show, which is resources. You guys obviously are a huge wealth of knowledge, but I would love for you guys to share some of your favorite resources, whether it's a favorite book you just read, favorite magazine, where you guys go to get your trends, where you go to get your inspiration. Feel free to share anything, or cool app, or, it could be like this new TV you just bought that you think is awesome. It could be a scuba mask, literally anything in the world. So, Brandon, I'll let you kick it off. Tell us a little bit about your favorite resources that you love to chow down on.
One of the things that we're working on as a company is our development of our managers and our staff all the way through. And I think people make the difference. So I focus a lot on how to develop people, how to develop managers, how to make people better. Between our core values and our mission statement, those are all very common things that everybody does. We're kind of taking that to all the different levels of our company. There's something called the compound effect by a guy named Darren Daly. If you ever heard of him, Darren Hardy. Darren Hardy's the author, but what he does every day, and you can go online and do this yourself, but if you go on to darrendaly.com, he comes out with a message every day. It's 2 to 5 minutes that I listen to every morning. That is a business, it's a business influence. It's not necessarily a catering influence. It's more global than that. But I think, I introduced that to the company. I'm actually going to a seminar next week with Darren Hardy to learn more about it. But darrendaly.com, you can sign up for his little daily webinars, and it's 2 to 5 minutes of your morning. And it's an inspirational something that varies in so many different ways. But I'm kind of clawing into that to develop my managers and my companies to grow to the next level.
Awesome. I love it. Stavros, what about you? What are your favorite resources?
Favorite resources are pretty varied, actually. One of my favorite things to do is aggregator apps like Flipboard, for example. I'm just a news junkie. I'm an information junkie. I'm a trend junkie. I just want to know about every industry. It's not just the catering industry. I love cars. I want to know all about what's going on in the automotive industry. So for me, it's diversifying what your knowledge base is, because you're going to find best practices, you're going to find influences, you're going to find taste makers and trend makers all over the place outside of your own industry. And then you can take that information and bring it back in. Within the industry, I mean, there are so many resources. BizBash comes to mind. If you want to come up with some really spectacular event concepts, BizBash Party Slate, which is a fantastic blog. These are places that I go to and I see what my peers are doing around the country, and I'm inspired by it. But I'd say the biggest thing is look within your own circle. Talk to your own friends. Talk to your own family. Well, if you like your family. But I look around at all these people I work with. We all come from different backgrounds. We all come from different ethnicities. I mean, we start putting our heads together. We come up with some really whack job ideas that next thing you know, you're figuring out how to make that whack job an idea a reality. And then you just blow yourselves away and you blow your client away with, how did you do that? Well, we're never going to tell you, but we're probably never going to be able to do it again either. So there you go. But just spread that knowledge around. Don't just focus on one particular part of what you do, whether it's personal or professional. Just kind of round yourself out a little bit. So those are the resources I go for.
Amazing. I was going to mention too, a great aggregator I love is Feedly as well.
Yeah.
It's really, really great. And I pair that with Pocket. So then when you're reading through news, you go on Feedly and they save it for later in your pocket. I love it. So I'm glad we are both information junkies that way. Chef Michael, what are your favorite resources that you have for the audience?
Resources for me, I'm a TV guy. So like to watch a lot of TV. I'll tell you what. I've seen almost every Anthony Bourdain. I've seen all those things. And being a caterer, as I mentioned before, everything from Asian to Brazilian to wherever it is in the world, he kind of takes you there. And I love watching the shows. You get just a little cross section of what those cool things are from around the world. And then, there's a new TV station, and I forgot the name of the actual station. My wife makes me watch it. There's a pizza show. And they have all these different shows on this new channel. I'm sorry I can't give that to you. I don't remember it, but there's some really great food shows on there. And I love watching those, sitting down, seeing what's going on. I mean, pizza from around the world, everywhere from Italy to Boston to New York and then all the way down to Florida, They do everything from around the world. So I kind of draw on those experiences.
Oh, awesome. I love it. And if you do remember, we'll throw it down in the show notes afterwards as well in the recording. So then that way we can share it with everybody. But absolutely fantastic resources. Amazing. I love all of the resources that you guys shared. So some new ones that I haven't heard of that I'm going to definitely check out for sure. So Brant, you want to kind of wrap up the show?
Well, yeah, obviously. Thanks, guys, for joining us. So, yeah, Chef, you want to interject there?
Viceland. That's it. I just looked it up. The computer, the internet's going to take off someday.
One of these days, it's going to be like wildfire.
Yeah,
right?
One day we'll be able to video chat with each other across the world.
Viceland. It's a good channel. They got tons of food shows on there.
Well, Stavros and Brandon and Chef Michael, thank you so much for joining me. Where can folks find out more about you guys? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, they can reach out to us through, if they want to get a message to us, our website, there's a contact us there, mculinary.com. You can check out our blog, mculinaryblog.com. Obviously, we're on social media all over the place. mculinaryaz is our handle for Instagram, for Twitter, for Pinterest. We do have Facebook pages for each of our major brands. But really, if you want to find us, just come to the biggest, coolest events in town and come to the back of house, and you'll find Brandon, you'll find Michael, you'll find a bunch of us back there somewhere. And if we're not there, please tell us what those events are, because we want to go get them.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. And thank you all for joining us as well. I'm Brant Kruger at Brant Kruger on Twitter. He's Will Curran. It's Will Curran on Twitter. Thank you so much. We hope to see you next time on the next edition of Event Icons. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #Event Icons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the Twitter conversation sponsored by Alex Plaxon and Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with #Event Icons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #Event Icons.